Welcome back to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain, and also cool your heels on AMFM247.com radio, heard every Tuesday evening from 8 to 9 p.m. And today our special guest on Cool Your Heels is Denise Byers, who is a Toronto award-winning author who writes poetry about mental health. And her book received the 2019 Book Excellence Award. So good afternoon, Denise. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am fine. So
Great.
I understand that the poetry book is called Shattered, and it's about mental health. Now, why did you decide to write poetry about mental health?
I actually don't even think it was a conscious decision. I've always liked writing, creative writing, and I've been a professional writer, including technical writing, for over 30 years. But when it came to telling a story, and Shattered is really part of my story because I do suffer from mental illness in various forms, I just started writing, and it came out in poetry. It was very odd, actually. It was a very big surprise to me that all of a sudden I these 50 poems that really told my story, but it was through poetry.
So when oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, it wasn't a conscious decision. It just sort of came out that way.
Okay. So when you wrote your poetry, did you do it in any particular order, or did you do it as you grappled with each part of the mental health issue yourself personally?
No, again, it just came to me. There were some days I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have a poem in my head, and there were some times where it did relate to something going on in my life, or maybe I was having a tough time with anxiety or depression, and I would just start writing, and it came out lyrically. So it's very much like lyrics. Everything rhymes, and it's got a nice flow. And then what I did was the poems would come as they would come, whenever they felt like it. I swear there were people inside me that do the work. And then what I did is I kind of tried to put them in an order in the book so it had a bit of a flow. So starting at the beginning when I'm discovering I do have mental illness and, what am I going to do about it? And then talking a little bit about the healthcare system, mental health care system here in Canada, and then moving on to really dark parts of my life when I tried to commit suicide to escape my illness because I just wasn't getting the treatment. So I just tried to put it in a format that's for people, so hopefully that it made sense to them. If they're sufferers, maybe it would resonate, and if they maybe are caring for a sufferer, maybe it would help their understanding a little.
So how is the healthcare up in Canada? It's a little bit different from the healthcare down in the States. So let people know what you faced in your journey while you were trying to get treatment for your mental health.
It was pretty nightmarish, I have to say. I think there's a lot of myths about the Canadian healthcare system. I believe that it was a glorious thing at one point, but it hasn't been that terrific universal health care that you down there hear about and a lot of people in a lot of countries envy. It's not like that anymore. Basically, what happens is a portion of our income tax is used to pay for health care. That's it. That's it in a nutshell.
Depending on where you live, you may pay more or less dollars into the healthcare system?
Usually it's the same all across the board, except Quebec sometimes has different rules than the rest of the country, which is pretty standard for all public policy regarding Canada and this relationship with the province of Quebec.
So basically, what do you need to do for someone who is suffering from a mental illness? What's the best advice that you can give to somebody in the Canadian domain of how to go about and approach it with a doctor? Are you assigned a doctor? Can you choose your own doctors?
It depends. You can choose your own doctor, but that doctor has the right to deny you if he or she already has a full, patient load
Right.
and just can't take on any more patients. And that's really the biggest issue I'm finding with the Canadian healthcare system. There are just not enough doctors, to deal with any illness. But I find mental illness especially difficult because I call it the invisible disease. People don't know by looking at me that, there are days when I literally cannot get out of bed. I'm just glued, figuratively, to my bed, just out of anxiety and an irrational fear of what will happen if I get out of bed. It's crazy, but,
No.
hate to use the word crazy, but I just mean
No,
it's crazy in a silly way,
I don't think you're crazy. I have an irrational fear traveling by myself, but I make myself do it. And I put on dark sunglasses because I feel protected behind them.
I understand that completely.
So when I go traveling, even at dead at night, I wear my dark sunglasses because my shield wall is up.
Right.
And it creates enough of an invisible barrier between you and everybody else that I'm able to do it.
Right. You feel safe.
I feel safe. Now, if you explain that to a rational person...
Yeah, that doesn't go over very well usually.
They don't understand it because they don't have that fear.
That's right. And they don't, and I find a lot of people don't even try. They don't even try to understand it. To me, it's kind of a challenge. It was a challenge to understand it for myself. I had to look at myself, like the way I was acting, what I was doing, how I was speaking, whatever the case may be. Realize that I had these certain forms of mental illness, and I had to own it. And then I had to start working on dealing with it. Okay, how am I going to navigate this journey I'm on? Because mental illness is in there and it's not going away. I'm in treatment, which is good, but it took a long time to get the proper treatment just due to the shortage of doctors.
So if a person who has a child or a teenager, or even an adult teenager, if you want to put it that way, or for themselves, what are some of the things that they need to do after they own it? And that's the most important step, ladies and gentlemen. You have to own that there's something wrong with you. Most people don't like doing that because it marks them as different. Well, I've been different all my life, so that wasn't a big problem. But if you've been normal most of your life and all of a sudden you're different, it can be a problem.
Well, I've lost many relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, familial relationships. I've lost a lot because in addition to my mental illness, I suffer from chronic pain in the form of daily migraines. So I'm that person who's canceling all the time at the last minute or who can't make plans and things like that because I just don't know. So, so it eats away at your support system. So I'm down to not that many people, supporting me, which is a big reason why I really wanted to get this book out there and into the hands of sufferers and the people who care for them. So again, that there be an understanding because you own it. Then you got to try and figure it out. You got to try and understand it. So you can maybe kind of work backwards in a way. It's almost like taking out a braid of a hair instead of braiding it to be the full braid. You're going in reverse and taking it out. And you're going through the steps to say, oh, okay, you're breaking it down. And you're breaking it down step by step and say, oh, I understand now why I'm like this or why I'm like that or this happened to me at this point in time, and now I see that it's affected me in this way. Now, how am I going to go forward with that? What are some steps I can do to go forward? Reading my book is helping a lot of people. Getting into talk therapy, medication if you need it, and being willing to stick it out because it's not easy. You have to find the right cocktail of medications, and that can take a couple of years, really, easily. So you have to be very patient and very, very willing to really go deep and examine inside yourself and be willing to do the work.
Absolutely. And if any of you are ever diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, heads up, that comes with bringing depression with it.
Yes, yeah.
So be aware of what you can pick up, even as an adult, and be aware of what progression you need to make immediately once you're diagnosed by a competent doctor. Now, it also says you're a mother to 3 adult kids.
I am.
Yeah, well, I only had the one, but
yeah, you're the smart lady.
but I have 3 grandchildren.
No, amazing. My kids are great. They're really great.
So how were they when you were struggling? Were they there as support? Did they pull away?
No, actually, they're still the most supportive people I've ever known. I mean, I did something right in raising these ones, I'll tell you. They're not perfect, never going to be, no one is. Don't expect that from anyone, especially my children. I'm honest about their flaws and things like that. I'm not that mom and the teacher calls and, oh, no, not my little Timmy. He couldn't have done that. It's like, yeah, I could see my kid doing that. But they stood by me. They stood by me and elevated me. They didn't just stand by me. Sometimes they had to carry me. And this was, I mean, look, I had a major breakdown in 2007. So what's that, 13 years ago. And my youngest now is 26, so he would have been 13 years old at the time. I mean, for him to understand, I'm trying to commit suicide. And then after that, the fallout and getting help and things like that, it was very difficult for them, but they hung in there with me, and they're still with me today.
And that is good. And do they face any possibility? Now, some people argue that mental illness is inherited, and some people believe it's maybe in the genes, and some people, of course, think it's just dealing with life itself.
I think it's both, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a healthcare professional in any way. I'm just basically going on my own experience and my experience with other sufferers, including my children. So yes, maybe they did inherit it. I don't know. Maybe it was the shock of seeing their mother, this once strong, very competent and confident woman, completely crumble. Just I shattered, so I don't know what
I know the feeling.
Yeah. So, and I think most people do. They may not have a word for it, or they may have a different word for it. I say shattered, crumble, we call it whatever we call it, but I think once you can identify it and again, own it, then try to start understanding it. And as you do that, you'll find your support system will build and develop, but it'll also change as well. As my kids got older and started having their own lives and things like that, it's not just about, taking care of mom and making sure mom's okay. Although I have to say I'm very blessed. I mean, I talk to my children nearly every day.
That's very good. Congratulations. You'll have to share with the rest of the audience how you do that.
I think I just have to threaten that I'm going to come over if they don't call me back.
Oh, that's a good one. That's an excellent one. I just remind them very gently, well, we're not going to be around all the time, and the day may come when somebody may drop dead, and then where you be? And, like 3 months after I made that announcement, their grandfather died, and so right now they're being very kind.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right now they're being kind.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it changes, it changes. I mean, and I can't expect my children to take care of me. That isn't why I brought them into the world. I wasn't looking for someone to love me. I had all this love to give, and I wanted to do that. And now they tell me that they want to give back. They're saying, thank you for the way you raised us, and thank you for, I don't know how you did it and how you continue to do it. You're there for us. But
that's
they're there for me.
That's really
very special. Yes, it is.
So are you planning on writing more poetry dealing with your mental illness?
Absolutely. This is a collection that dates back 40 years. So I have other poems that I didn't put into this book that will go into a second book. There's already about 52 poems, I believe. So that was a pretty big book. And I also want to do another one on grief, because I've had a lot of loss in my life in the past few years, and I know a lot of other people have as well. And I'd like to do something on grief.
I think that's good because I really feel that most people figure that the only time they'll grieve is when they lose a loved one or something tragic happens. But that's not exactly true. There are more issues that one needs to deal with and address that deals with grief besides just death or tragedy.
I agree, and 100%. And I mean, grief. There's no time limit. There's no game plan. It's different for everybody. It lasts as long as it's going to last for everybody. So a lot of that comes into how you cope with it and whatnot. But yeah, it does. It's different. It's different for everybody. So.
And it's different for kids.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. We actually, my husband, my then husband, and I actually got the kids a hamster when they were young, and it sort of taught them sort of the cycle of life. So we started off with like small pets and things like that they could take care of. But it was a good lesson. It was a good lesson for them. It was sad. I mean, it was sad to see their pet pass away, but it taught them, this is life.
Yes, and I think that every kid should be taught along those same lines because it's important for them to understand that life really is a very precious gift. And there's no guarantees that just because you're here today, you may be there tomorrow, especially with what's going on in today's world, especially with the new diseases which are popping up, and modern penicillin can no longer keep at bay.
Yeah.
So
there's just so many things. We have so many things in this world. We have war, we have climate change, and we have, people not liking our prime minister or president, and just craziness going on around us. I don't think, I mean, how can people not have mental illness in this world?
I would think that they say here that, they say on Canada that, I'm trying to find the paragraph so I get it the right way. Okay. Oh, here it is. According to the Canadian Mental Health Association, statistics show that 1 in 5 North Americans have, or will have some form of mental illness in their lifetime. It should be noted that mental illness is a disease that goes largely unreported due to the stigma attached to it.
Yeah, that's right. It's 1 in 5 people in the U.S. as well. So
yes,
yeah, it's pretty scary. I mean, it's pretty scary, and I do believe that number is not correct. I do believe it's a higher number because because of the underreporting, especially with men and certain cultural communities, where it's just seen as a weakness, and it's not. It's an illness, and it should be treated like that. And the person who has it should be respected, just like the person who has cancer or diabetes, I
know. It's a cruel world in the type of illnesses that divide and conquer us, and mental illness happens to be one of them. I know for a fact that my brother refused to get help because he said it would go on his resume and ruin him for life.
Yeah,
and I said, oh, great, I have to have a mad brother now.
God.
Mad not being angry, ladies and gentlemen, but crazy. Yes, well.
Oh, I hear you. Believe me, I hear you.
Well, when I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, I felt like holding up a little lantern and going through the world saying, leprosy, beware.
Yeah, I hear you. I know what you're saying because of my chronic pain. It's given me a compromised immune system, and because I'm constantly in pain. And I think that led to a lot of my depression, to be honest with you.
Absolutely.
And anxiety. and anxiety, because when you're constantly in a high level of pain, you're anxious.
Yes,
Tense,
and it hurts, for God's sake. I mean, people say, well, why don't you take something? I said, are you kidding? Thanks to all you drug addicts out there, my doctor won't give me anything stronger than aspirin.
Lillian, thank you so much for saying that, because that is exactly the issue here in Canada. And I am caught. I am just trapped in the system. Yeah. I cannot get adequate help for my legitimate pain. I have been assessed as a non-addictive personality. You know, I've been having this pain for over 40 years.
Yep, I know. You're talking. You're talking to the choir here. I know.
Yeah, the last 22 years, I have not had one day where there hasn't been some level of pain. I'm not saying they're all 10 out of 10, 10 being the worst. Well, maybe it's a 3 out of 10.
But it's this like having a constant gnawing all the time. And it doesn't matter what position you're in.
Nope. I compare it to a toothache. It's nagging. It's unrelenting. And it's just there constantly. And you're like, oh.
So I asked my doctor, I said, do you mean to tell me that everybody who's taking aspirin and Aleve and all that other stuff aren't just as much as of an addiction as people who are on addictive drugs?
Yeah.
And he said, yes. And I said, well, I'm surprised you even let me take Bear then.
No kidding. These are the same things that we're hearing up in Canada from our doctors as well. And I liked how you said, thanks to all the drug addicts and stuff, because it's true. And I think at least in Canada, the other culprit is our medical boards. We don't call them medical boards, but the governing bodies. They don't want the doctors prescribing these opioids. So people are turning to the streets, and they're getting stuff that you don't know what they're getting. How does anyone know what they're getting?
Well, I know that.
They take a pill from somebody and then believe what it is, and they don't know how much to take. They don't know how often. And that is leading to a crisis. And then thank you very much. People like you and I can now not get the proper treatment.
No, I mean, when they did some kind of tap on me, they gave me morphine. And I was still asking questions 20 minutes later about the procedure that I found on the screen. So obviously morphine doesn't work. And I know that cannabis doesn't work. Doesn't do a damn thing for me. So
what's that one? Which one was that one?
Cannabis, marijuana.
Oh, yeah, I didn't hear you. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, me neither.
Somebody gave me some illegal pills because I had a marijuana dispensary, and they said, let me know how well they work, and they didn't work, and he gave me the oil, and he says, let me know how it worked, and it didn't work. And he says, what's with you? And I said, I'm not addictive.
That's
Drugs
what
don't work on me.
No, and if it does, it goes straight to the pain. I'm not going to get high.
And the other thing is that my system kicks it out. I mean, it's in 1 second and out the next. So I'm looking at this doctor who's highly trained, and I felt like saying, well, you don't understand. Medicine doesn't work on me.
That's the same with me. I have the same problem. I just have to, like you, push forward and keep soldiering on.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's what you have to do, like me, every day. And people don't realize it takes a lot of mental strength to be able to do that every single day of your life. It's, you wake up and you're instantly aware, oh, God, the pain's there again. Okay. And then you got to dial it down. You got to meditate. You got to do whatever you got to do in order to push through that day. And if people don't think that takes great mental strength, then they're the ones who have something wrong mentally, because it takes a lot. It's the strong people who can only get through what we do.
Absolutely. I mean, my son looks at me, he says, you're so strong. And I said, women are born that way. We have to put up with a lot more crap than guys do.
Yep, that's for sure. Yep.
And, I kind of looked a little injured, and I felt like saying, well, it's like this. We take care of everybody. We're expected to go to work, then come home and go to work, and it's not until everybody's in bed, including the husband, that we're allowed a few hours respite, and we're already up again in the middle of the night to tend to whatever's going on then.
Exactly.
So let me warn you ahead of time. It's the women who have the strength, because they are the ones who take care and are responsible for making the decisions that affect the rest of the community. Come on.
That's right. That's exactly right. And again, I go back to if anyone out there thinks that that doesn't take great mental strength and good mental health, then they're the ones who are quote unquote crazy. Because it takes a strong, well-balanced person to be able to do that every day.
Absolutely.
So I wish more people would come forward and report, their symptoms and what they've got, because maybe we would finally put enough pressure on our legislators to, get to put some money into, research and development, because clearly, the medications out there for, the various autoimmune diseases and whatnot are not working, and we need more. We need more knowledge.
I agree with you 100%. So, Denise, please tell everybody where they can find your award-winning book, where they can find you on the World Wide Web. And before we wrap up the program, do you have a poem that you can read to the audience?
Sure. Let me see. I'll do just a quick one. It's should I do the one about pain?
And for those who read it and then listen to it, call us up, 484-364-1032, Passionate World Talk Radio, and win 5 minutes to get on Wine, WHINE, Cheese Show to get out what's ever bothering you.
Oh, cool. Okay, I'm going to read one that kind of covers mental illness and my chronic pain.
Great.
Okay, so it's called I Live, But I Am Not Alive. I heard you weren't vengeful. I heard you didn't judge. I heard you were forgiving. I heard you didn't hold a grudge. The evidence doesn't bear out that myth. I'm in turmoil every minute of every day. And there you are with power you won't use to make it all go away. I thought life was supposed to be lived and not just survived. But here I am. I merely exist. I live, but I am not alive. Do you enjoy watching me suffer? Do you like seeing me in pain? Does it make you laugh when I cry over and over again? So many sheep worship you up there on your throne. Down here I hold my head in anguish. In pain I moan and groan. You obviously have something against me, but can't we work it out? I pray for your help every night. Do you hear me as I shout? You claim to be God, but I think you're a fraud. What crime did I commit to deserve this sentence? Do I get a reprieve, or am I just naive to believe your existence is not just a pretense? I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm frustrated, I'm mad. I don't understand what I'm supposed to gain in living each and every day in life-draining, excruciating pain. Help me, please. I'm begging you. Please put me out of my misery. Help me start over pain-free. Help me rewrite my history. I need the help of the wizard, for surely I'm in Oz, where this pain-filled life is all a dream and will soon be back to what it was. I live, but truthfully I just exist. It's getting harder to survive. I'm begging you for a chance for my life to be revived. So I click my heels and say the lines, take away this debilitating life I am living. I'm also giving you a chance to prove you're real and you're forgiving. That's the end.
Well, thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, you can hear this interview with Denise all over again at https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. Go to the right-hand side of the page. You'll see the menu. Scroll down to Cool Your Heels. Click on it, and you will hear it. Also, if you're not up or well-versed in technology, there are sizzle lines for each host. Look up My Sizzle Line. Just call up the number, and instantaneously the interview with Denise will start, and you can hear it that way. You'll also hear it on YouTube, iHeart, Alexa, Spotify, Podcatcher, Podchaser, all of social media. So there shouldn't be any reason why you won't hear it. And then, of course, Denise will get an MP3 stream to use for promotional purposes. So you should be hearing it from her on her website. No excuses. And before you go away and stray, Yes, Hazlitt had this to say: prejudice is never easy unless it could pass itself off for reason. So thank you all very much for listening. And remember, please keep listening. Thank you.